I buried my father twice. Once in the ground when fever took him. Once in my memory when I learned what he really was. Now his ghost rides beside me through silver-soaked hills, whispering that some sins don't stay buried, they wait. And in Blackwater Canyon, his reckoning has finally arrived. These lands know pain better than joy. Every mark in the sand tells a story, but folks rarely listen. I saw this tale with my own eyes, like the crackle of a fire at night. The shadows of the past don't leave. You'd best listen close. Out here, it's the only way to survive. The town of Blackwater Canyon clung to the mountainside like a scar refusing to heal. Its buildings were weathered gray, paint stripped by wind and winter, leaving wooden skeletons that creaked with every gust. Mine shafts dotted the hills above like hollow eyes watching the valley, and tailings spilled down slopes in rivers of dead stone. I rode in at dawn, when mist hung thick between pines and morning light turned everything the color of old bone. My horse's hooves struck frozen mud, with sharp sounds echoing off canyon walls. Nobody was out yet. Saloons dark, the general store shuttered, even the church silent, its cross casting a long shadow across empty streets. My name is Daniel Ashford. I'm 28, though these mountains age a man faster than years alone can measure. My father was Marcus Ashford, and for 20 years he owned the Redemption Mine, the largest silver vein in 3 territories. He was respected, wealthy. His word carried weight in governor's offices, and his donations built half the churches between here and Denver. He was also a liar, a thief, and the reason 16 men died in a shaft collapse 8 years ago. I didn't know that then. I was 20, away at university, learning law and dreaming of futures far from these mountains, when the telegram came: father deceased. Fever. Return immediately. I rode home through snow and grief, believing I'd lost a good man. I inherited his fortune, his mine, his reputation. I stood at his graveside and promised to honor his legacy. It took 3 years to discover the truth. The collapse wasn't an accident. My father knew the support timbers were rotting. Engineers warned him. Inspectors were bribed. He sent those 16 men into that mountain knowing walls could give at any moment, because pulling them out to repair the shaft would cost 2 weeks of production. 2 weeks of profit he refused to sacrifice. Families were paid off. Records destroyed. Witnesses disappeared with enough money to forget. And Marcus Ashford continued praised as a pillar until fever burned through him, leaving him gasping in a bed too soft for a man who'd sent others to die in darkness. I found the papers in his study, ledgers detailing bribes, letters from engineers marked urgent, structural failure imminent, a contract with a man named Silas Crane to handle the families quietly. Every page was another nail in the coffin of the man I thought I knew. I spent 5 years trying to make it right. I tracked down families, offered restitution far beyond what they'd been paid for silence. Some took it. Others spat at my feet, said blood money couldn't bring back fathers, brothers, sons. I closed the Redemption Mine despite profitability. I sold holdings, liquidated assets, turned my father's empire into cash for those he'd wronged. But Silas Crane, the man who'd done my father's darkest work, remained a shadow I couldn't catch. He'd vanished after my father's death, taking secrets and something else, a ledger documenting not only the mine collapse, but years of other dealings. Extortion, claim jumping, men who'd opposed Marcus Ashford and mysteriously disappeared. 3 weeks ago, I received a letter. No signature, but handwriting unmistakable from those contracts. It said simply, Blackwater Canyon, November 15th. Come alone if you want the ledger. Come armed if you want the truth. So here I stood, in the town where my father first made his fortune, where silver veins ran deep and secrets ran deeper. Mist was burning off, revealing broken windows of abandoned shacks and rusted equipment left to rot when the boom died. Somewhere in this dead place, Silas Crane was waiting. I tied my horse outside the Silver Bell Saloon and pushed through the doors. Inside, air was thick with old smoke and older regrets. A few men sat hunched over morning whiskey, faces carved by hard years. The bartender, A woman with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much, looked up as I entered. "We're not open," she said, voice flat. "I'm not here for a drink. I'm looking for Silas Crane." The room went still. Every hand moved closer to wherever they kept their iron. The bartender's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or warning. "Crane doesn't see people who come looking," she said carefully. "He does the looking himself. Then he knows I'm here." She studied me, taking in my city clothes, 2 clean boots, the way I stood like a man who'd never worked underground. "You're Ashford's boy," she said finally. "Not a question. I'm Daniel Ashford. Your father built half this town, buried the other half." She wiped the bar with a rag long past being clean. "What makes you think Crane won't bury you too?" "Because I have something he wants." "What's that?" "Proof that he's still alive." Her hand stopped moving. In the corner, one of the drinkers stood slowly, chair scraping against floor. He was older than I'd first thought, maybe 60, face like weathered leather, hands trembling slightly near his gun belt. "You shouldn't have come here, boy," he said, voice rough as gravel. "Some ghosts are better left buried." "Are you Silas Crane?" He smiled, and it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. "No, but I'm one of the men who helped him bury your father's secrets. And I'm here to tell you, turn around, ride out. Whatever you think you'll find here won't give you peace." "I'm not looking for peace. I'm looking for justice." "Justice." He spat the word like poison. "Justice died in these mountains before your father did. All that's left now is settling scores." The door behind me opened, letting in cold air carrying pine and snow. I didn't turn, not yet, but I felt the weight of whoever entered, the way the room's attention shifted like iron filings to a magnet. Daniel Ashford. The voice was smooth, cultured, nothing like I'd expected from a man who'd spent years doing murder in shadows. "You're early. I admire punctuality." I turned slowly. Silas Crane stood in the doorway, backlit by morning sun, silhouette sharp as a knife's edge. He was younger than I'd imagined, maybe 50, silver threading dark hair, eyes holding the kind of intelligence that made him more dangerous than any quick-draw artist. He wore a fine coat, clean boots, and carried himself like a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. "Mr. Crane," I said evenly. "You have your father's face," he observed, stepping inside, "but not his eyes. Marcus had a killer's eyes. Yours are softer. Haunted, perhaps, but soft. You said you had something for me. Direct. I appreciate that." He moved to the bar, and the bartender poured him a drink without being asked. "Your father and I did business for 17 years. He was practical, ruthless when necessary, but always practical. You've spent 5 years trying to atone for his sins. It's admirable. Foolish, but admirable. The ledger. Where is it?" Crane sipped his whiskey, studying me over the glass rim. "Tell me, Daniel, what do you think you'll accomplish with it? The men your father wronged are dead or scattered. The officials he bribed have retired or died. That ledger is a record of crimes committed by ghosts against ghosts. It's evidence. Of what? That the world is cruel? That powerful men do terrible things." He set down his glass. "You can't prosecute the dead, boy. And if you try to prosecute me, you'll find I have friends in places that matter more than your conscience." "Then why bring me here?" For the first time, something flickered across Crane's face, something almost human. "Because your father made me a promise, and I intend to see it kept." He reached into his coat, and every man tensed. But what he pulled out wasn't a gun. It was a thick envelope, sealed with wax. "This is the ledger," he said, placing it on the bar between us. "Everything your father did, everyone he hurt, it's in here. Take it. Do whatever you think you need to do." I stared at the envelope, then at him. "What's the catch?" Crane smiled, and this time there was something predatory in it. "The catch, Daniel, is that once you open that, you'll learn your father's greatest crime wasn't the mine collapse, wasn't the bribes or murders or stolen land." He leaned closer, voice dropping. It was the promise he made to me, and the debt you've just inherited. I didn't reach for the envelope immediately. Something in Crane's expression, that predatory patience, told me the moment I touched it, I'd be bound to whatever trap he'd laid. The saloon felt smaller suddenly, the walls pressing in, the smoke-thick air harder to breathe. What promise? I asked, keeping my hands at my sides, visible, non-threatening. Crane lifted his glass again, swirling the amber liquid thoughtfully. Your father was a builder, Daniel. But every foundation needs blood to set properly. The redemption mine, the railway spur, the water rights that gave him control of 3 valleys. None of that came from silver alone. It came from knowing which men to remove and how to make those removals look natural. You're saying he was a murderer. I'm saying he was realistic about obstacles. Crane's smile was thin, joyless. For years, we had an arrangement. He'd identify problems, competitors, inspectors who couldn't be bought, miners who asked too many questions. I'd solve them, and in return, he paid me well and promised that when his time came, he'd ensure my retirement would be comfortable. The old man in the corner, the one who'd warned me to leave, laughed bitterly. Comfortable. That's a gentle word for what Marcus promised him. Crane shot him a look that could have frozen blood. Garrett, if you can't stay quiet, wait outside. But Garrett didn't move. His trembling hands steadied as they dropped to his gun belt, and I saw then that the shaking wasn't from age or drink. It was from rage barely controlled. You want to tell the boy the truth, or should I? Tell him what his father's promise really means. The tension in the room ratcheted up another notch. The bartender had disappeared into the back room. The other drinkers were pressed against the walls, trying to look invisible. Crane's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. Garrett and I have a disagreement about the terms of the arrangement, he said, as if discussing a business contract rather than blood debts. We don't have a disagreement, Garrett spat. We have a reckoning coming. Marcus promised you the mines remaining silver. Every ounce in the ground, plus the equipment, the claims, the whole damn mountain. And when he died, that promise passed to his heir. My stomach dropped. The redemption mine? $20 million in silver still in those veins, Crane said softly. Conservative estimate. Your father knew. He was dying 6 months before the fever took him. He came to me, said his conscience was troubling him about the 16 men. Said he wanted to make it right with his son, let you close the mine and play saint. But he owed me, Daniel. 17 years of service, 17 years of keeping his hands clean while mine got bloody. So he made a contract, witnessed, notarized, legal in every way that matters. Crane pulled another envelope from his coat, this one newer, crisper. Upon his death, ownership of the redemption mine and all associated claims transfers to Silas Crane, in exchange for services rendered. Your father signed it, had it filed with Territorial Land Office 3 days before he died. The words hit me like physical blows. That's impossible. I inherited everything. I've seen all his legal documents. You saw what his lawyers wanted you to see. The ones he paid to keep this particular document hidden until the right moment. Crane slid the second envelope across the bar. Open it. Verify the signatures, the dates, the filing marks. It's all legitimate. My hand shook as I broke the seal. Inside was exactly what he described. A contract in my father's handwriting. His signature bold and clear at the bottom, dated 6 months before his death. Witnessed by 2 men I'd never heard of. Filed with the Territorial Land Office under a claim number I'd never seen in any of his records. You forged this, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I knew they were false. The paper was aged correctly. The ink faded naturally. The filing stamps genuine. This wasn't a forgery. This was my father's final betrayal. I don't need to forge anything, Crane said quietly. Your father gave me what I earned. The question is what you're going to do about it. I'll fight it in court. You'll lose. Crane's voice hardened. The contract is airtight. My lawyers, and yes, I have very good lawyers, will bury you in litigation for years. You'll spend every dollar you have left fighting a battle you cannot win. And while you fight, I'll reopen the mine, pull out that silver, and finish what your father started. Those tunnels aren't safe. The timbers are rotten throughout. The ventilation systems are. I know. Crane's eyes were flat, reptilian. I was there when your father made the choice to send men into unstable shafts. I'll make the same choice. Silver doesn't care how many men die getting it out of the ground. Garrett's laugh was harsh, broken. And that's why I'm here, boy. Crane's been hiring men these past 2 weeks. Drifters, mostly. Men nobody'll miss. He plans to work that mine until it kills every last one of them, or the silver runs out, whichever comes first. They'll know what they're signing up for, Crane said dismissively. They'll know you're paying double wages. They won't know they're walking into a tomb. I looked between them, understanding crystallizing like ice water in my veins. You used to work for him, I said to Garrett. You did my father's killing. For 15 years. Garrett's face was haggard, carved by guilt I recognized because I'd seen it in my own mirror. I told myself I was just following orders, that the men we removed were bad men who deserved what they got. Then came the mine collapse. 16 men, Daniel. 16 families destroyed, so your father could protect his profit margin. That's when I knew I couldn't do it anymore. That's when I started drinking and trying to forget faces that won't stop haunting me. Noble of you, Crane said dryly, though I notice your conscience didn't trouble you enough to refuse your share of the payments. Blood money I'd give back if I could. Garrett's hands were near his guns now, and I could see the calculation in his eyes, how fast he could draw, what angle would give him the best chance against Crane, whether he'd survive long enough to make it count. Crane saw it too. He shifted slightly, his coat falling open just enough to reveal a shoulder holster I hadn't noticed before. Don't be foolish, Garrett. You're old, you're drunk, and you're slow. This won't end the way you want it to. Maybe not, but it'll end with you bleeding, and that's enough. The moment stretched tight as a bowstring. I could feel it about to snap. Could see Garrett's fingers starting to curl, Crane's weight shifting to his back foot. Stop, I said, surprised by the command in my own voice. Both of you stop. They froze, looking at me like they'd half forgotten I was there. There's another way, I said, thinking fast, knowing I had seconds before the violence erupted. Crane, you want the silver. Garrett, you want to stop more men from dying. I want justice for what my father did. I picked up both envelopes, the ledger and the contract. What if we could all get what we want? Crane's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. The ledger documents decades of crimes. Murder, extortion, fraud. Enough to put you in prison for the rest of your life, even with your lawyers. But the contract gives you legal ownership of the mine. We're deadlocked. You have the claim. I have evidence that could destroy you. So what's your proposal? I took a breath, hardly believing what I was about to suggest. Help me expose what my father did. Testify about the mine collapse, the bribes, all of it. Give the families real justice, not just my blood money. In exchange, I won't use the ledger against you personally. You walk away free, and I'll pay you fair market value for your share of the mine. Not to reopen it, but to ensure it stays closed. No more deaths for silver. Crane studied me for a long moment, then laughed, a genuine sound of surprise. You're offering to pay me millions of dollars to help you destroy your father's legacy and my own freedom? I'm offering you a chance to stop being my father's ghost and become your own man. How much blood money is enough, Mr. Crane? When does the weight of it crush you the way it's crushing Garrett? Something flickered in Crane's eyes. Not conscience, maybe, but calculation of a different kind. He looked at Garrett, then at me, then at the envelopes lying between us like cards in a high-stakes game neither of us could afford to lose. Your father said you were soft, Crane said slowly. He was worried you'd try to undo everything he built, that you'd let sentiment cloud your judgment. I'm starting to think he was right, and that he was terrified of what you might accomplish because of it. He reached for the contract, folding it carefully and placing it back in his coat. Then he picked up the ledger and held it for a moment, feeling its weight. I'll consider your offer, he said finally. But Daniel, understand this. The men I killed for your father were obstacles to progress, nothing more. The miners who died were acceptable losses in a dangerous business. I don't regret what I did. I'm not looking for redemption or forgiveness. If I agree to this, it's purely a business decision. Are you prepared to make a deal with a man who sees human life as just another commodity? I met his eyes and didn't flinch. My father made deals with you for 17 years. I think I can manage it for one. Crane smiled, and this time there was something like respect in it. You're more your father's son than you want to admit. He stood, draining the last of his whiskey. I'll send word in 3 days. Wait at the boarding house. Don't leave town. Don't do anything foolish. And don't assume this conversation means we're partners. We're opponents who've agreed to a temporary ceasefire. Nothing more. He walked to the door, paused, then looked back at Garrett. You can stop looking for chances to kill me, old man. The boy's given us both a better option. Then he was gone, leaving me and Garrett alone in the saloon with the weight of everything unsaid pressing down like the mountain overhead. Garrett slumped into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 60 years. You just made a deal with the devil, boy. No, I said quietly, staring at the door where Crane had disappeared. I made a deal with my father's devil. Now I have to hope I'm strong enough to control what I've unleashed. Outside, clouds were gathering over the mountains, promising snow. Blackwater Canyon had 3 days to decide whether it would finally find justice, or simply add more names to its list of the dead. The boarding house room was small, cold, and smelled of mildew and forgotten years. I lay awake that first night, listening to the wind howl through the canyon and the distant creak of the abandoned mine structures as they swayed in the gusts. Sleep, when it came, brought dreams of darkness, tunnels collapsing, men screaming, my father's face emerging from shadow to whisper that some debts could only be paid in blood. I woke before dawn to find an envelope had been slipped under my door. No name, no signature, just an address. Miners' Cemetery. Sunrise. The cemetery sat on a wind-scoured hillside above town. Rows of weathered wooden crosses marking graves of men who'd come to these mountains seeking fortune and found only stone and darkness. Many bore no names, just unknown miner and a date, as if their identities had been consumed along with their lives. Garrett was waiting when I arrived, standing before a section of 16 graves set slightly apart from the others. Someone had planted wild roses there years ago, and they'd gone thorny and wild, their branches reaching across the markers like grasping fingers. Every spring, someone replants these roses, Garrett said without looking at me. Nobody knows who. The families are all gone now, moved away, died off, or just wanted to forget. But someone remembers. Someone still comes. I moved closer, reading the names carved into the crosses. Patrick O'Brien, age 32. Samuel Chun, age 24. Roberto Mendoza, age 45. On and on. 16 men reduced to names and numbers, their stories compressed into the few inches of wood that marked their final resting place. I knew them, Garrett continued, his voice rough with emotion. Patrick had 3 daughters, used to show me their pictures every chance he got. Samuel was saving money to bring his parents over from San Francisco. Roberto's wife was pregnant with their 5th child. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were hollow. Your father knew them too. He'd walk through the mine, shake their hands, ask about their families. Then he sent them to die. I can't change what he did. No, but you can make sure people remember. That's why I brought you here. Garrett pulled a folded paper from his coat. These are the names of every man who's contacted Crane about work in the past 2 weeks. 23 names, Daniel. 23 more men who'll end up in graves like these if Crane reopens that mine. I took the list, scanning the names. How did you get this? Crane's foreman drinks at the Silver Bell. Likes to talk when he's had enough whiskey. I'm old, but I can still listen. Garrett moved to the edge of the cemetery, looking down at the town spread below us. 3 days isn't long. If you're serious about stopping this, you need to act now. Crane said he'd consider my offer. Crane lies for a living. Whatever he's considering, it's not your offer. It's how to neutralize you as a threat while still getting what he wants. Garrett turned back to me. You want to know why I came back to Blackwater? Why I've spent the last 2 weeks drinking and haunting the saloons instead of riding away to somewhere my conscience might stop screaming? Why? Because I helped kill 16 men, and I need to save at least that many to balance the scales. Maybe it won't buy me into heaven, but it might keep hell's gates from slamming quite so hard. His laugh was bitter. Foolish, I know. The devil doesn't care about mathematics, but it's all I've got left. Before I could respond, a woman's voice cut through the morning air. So this is where the ghosts gather. We both turned to see her coming up the hillside path. Young, maybe 25, with dark hair pulled back severely and eyes that held the kind of hardness that came from surviving things that should have broken her. She wore a simple dress, a heavy shawl, and carried a basket filled with fresh wildflowers. "Miss Chun," Garrett said, surprise evident in his voice. "I didn't expect to see me here." She moved past us to Samuel Chen's grave, kneeling to clear away dead vegetation before arranging her flowers carefully. Where else would I be? This is the only family I have left. I looked at Garrett, confused. He cleared his throat. "Daniel Ashford, this is May Chun, Samuel's younger sister." She didn't look up from her work. "Ashford, so you're the son. Come to see what your father built with my brother's bones." The accusation hit hard, but I'd earned it. I came to try to make things right. "Right," she laughed, but there was no humor in it. "There is no right that brings back the dead, Mr. Ashford. There's only what happens next." She finished with the flowers and stood, brushing dirt from her dress. "I hear Silas Crane is hiring miners. I hear he plans to reopen the redemption. I'm trying to stop him. Are you?" Her gaze was penetrating, seeing through whatever facade I had constructed. "Or are you trying to buy your way out of guilt? Because if it's the latter, save your money. Guilt doesn't negotiate. What would you have me do?" She moved closer, and I saw now that her hardness was a shell protecting something more fragile underneath, grief that had calcified into determination. "I would have you burn that mine to the ground, collapse every tunnel, destroy every piece of equipment, salt the earth so nothing can ever be taken from it again. I would have you make it impossible for anyone to profit from the place where my brother died. That's destruction, not justice. Sometimes they're the same thing." She reached into her basket and pulled out a leather journal, worn and water-stained. Samuel kept a diary. The last entry was the day before the collapse. He wrote that the support timbers were cracking, that the engineers had walked out after your father refused to shut down the shaft, that he was afraid but needed the money to bring our parents from San Francisco. Her voice cracked slightly. "He died terrified, Mr. Ashford, in darkness, crushed by rock, knowing it didn't have to happen. How do you make that right?" I had no answer. The weight of 16 deaths pressed down on me, heavier than any mountain. May looked at Garrett. "You were there. You helped cover it up." "Yes. And now you want absolution." "No. I just want to stop it from happening again." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "At least that's honest." She turned back to me. "Crane will never agree to your deal, Mr. Ashford. Men like him don't stop until something stops them. If you want to save those 23 miners, you'll have to do more than negotiate. You'll have to act. I'm not my father. I won't use violence to solve problems." "Then you've already lost." She moved toward the path leading back to town. "My brother believed in negotiation too. He trusted your father to do the right thing when the engineers warned him. That trust killed him." She was almost gone when I called out, "Miss Chun, wait. If not negotiation, then what? What would you do?" She stopped, looking back at me with eyes that held depths of pain I couldn't begin to understand. "I'd give the miners the truth. All of it. The ledger, the contract, the real reason the redemption collapsed. Let them decide if Crane's silver is worth their lives. Take away his greatest weapon, the ignorance of desperate men." Then she was gone, leaving me and Garrett alone among the graves. "She's right," Garrett said quietly. "Crane's recruiting from mining camps across 3 territories. These men don't know Blackwater's history. They just hear double wages and think they've found good fortune. So we tell them, it's not enough. Desperate men make desperate choices. They'll convince themselves the dangers are exaggerated, that they'll be more careful than the others. That luck will favor them." He moved among the graves, touching each cross gently, as if apologizing to the dead. "No, if you want to stop this, you need to do what Miss Chen said. Make it impossible for the mine to operate. And you need to expose Crane's whole operation before he can disappear into the shadows again." The ledger's a start, but it's evidence of crimes committed years ago against people nobody remembers. You need something immediate, something that'll make territorial authorities act now. I thought about it, pieces falling into place. If Crane's been hiring miners and purchasing equipment, there'll be a paper trail. Supply orders, payroll records, correspondence about the mine's condition. If we could prove he's knowingly sending men into unsafe conditions. "That's not just negligence," Garrett finished. "That's premeditated murder, the kind of thing territorial marshals can't ignore." "Do you know where he's keeping those records?" Garrett smiled, and it was the first time I'd seen anything like hope in his expression. "I know he's working out of the old mine superintendent's office up at the Redemption. I know he's hired 2 guards to watch it day and night. And I know the back entrance through the equipment shed that only the old-timers remember." "You're suggesting we break in?" "I'm suggesting we get evidence before 3 days pass, and Crane decides your offer isn't worth his time. Your father built his empire on hidden documents and destroyed records. Maybe it's time his son tears it down the same way." The morning sun had fully risen now, painting the cemetery in harsh light that revealed every crack in the weathered crosses, every sign of decay. Below, Blackwater Canyon was coming to life, smoke rising from chimneys, the distant sound of hammers and saws as Crane's men prepared the mine for reopening. I looked at the 16 graves, at the wild roses Mei Chun had tended despite everything, at the list of 23 names in my hand. My father would have negotiated, calculated the costs and benefits, found the most profitable solution. But standing there among the dead he'd helped create, I realized I didn't want to be my father's son anymore. "Tonight," I said. "We go tonight." Garrett nodded grimly. "Tonight, and may whatever gods watch over fools and sons of sinners be with us." As we walked back down the hillside, I didn't look back at the cemetery, but I felt the weight of those graves following me like a promise I'd made to ghosts. A promise that somehow justice would find its way to Blackwater Canyon, even if I had to drag it there through darkness and blood. But the story isn't over. Not yet. The hardest trials still lie ahead. The truth still waits to be revealed. And when everything comes to a head, what will happen to our heroes? Part 2 holds all the answers. Don't miss the continuation.